Hello. I'm back. Do you still remember me? Okay, I apologize. Okay, cut the music. Yeah. What I did was I took a long, like a 6-month hiatus from this channel and went over to the Thomas Spessler channel as a commentator. I thought he was doing a pretty good job of covering the news at the time, and disclosure was heating up at that time. It's kind of cooled down now again, but I had to leave the show because eventually I came to realize that we had irreconcilable views on what may be coming for us all in the future. And I think it's good news. I really do. I acknowledge that there's going to be some pain in transition, but we're already in pain, so what the fuck, right? But what I want to talk about today is something that came up quite a few months ago, or a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. Lue Elizondo, do you remember the comment that he made about somber, using the word somber? Like, how would the public react? And this comment has gotten a lot of attention from people who are pushing the fear narrative. And that's not what Lue was talking about. First of all, if you saw Lue's vacation pictures, which were just pretty recent, like just a month or so ago, he was having a great time with his beautiful wife. This news that he's aware of, this information that he's aware of, has not destroyed his outlook on life. And so that's just a high-level proof that it's not something to get depressed about. But I will explain to you exactly what he was talking about, because I know with a really high degree of certainty exactly what he was talking about. So we're going to break that down. And I hope this video goes well. It's my first one in quite a while. Let's just get right to it. This came from the great Kurt Jaimunkel from the Theories of Everything YouTube channel. Just an awesome channel. Kurt's an awesome person. I find him to be a little on the skeptical side, but I guess that's, par for the course. Someone coming from the scientific world hasn't really dug their heels into this subject. The UFO subject. It's one of those things where to really get the subject, to really get a knowing and a certainty about what is happening here, there isn't just one book or just one video that you can watch or read that will get you to where I'm at, or that would get anyone to where I'm at. It's what happens is you have to compile everything that you've read and watched and try to sum it all up into connect the dots and make a rational picture about what's going on. And so it's a difficult subject for that reason, because, the news, it's hard for the news to be able to talk about something like this when all those pieces that I'm talking about haven't been put into place and connected. So it's hard. It's still hard for them to get over the stigma. Really, it is. And I think there are some good people that are trying to overcome that, and News Nation is certainly one of those people. But this comes from the great Kurt. And let's get to it. See, I'll switch over. All right. I'm not sure how much of this I'm going to play, but I know that this is a 16-minute video, and I know that I want to play at least a good chunk of it in the beginning, because this is where the really good comments come in. Let's go. Come on, come on. All right, back that up.
I think there would be this big X.
This first clip went viral on YouTube and is from 2020.
If the general public knew or saw what you saw, what would the next week look like? How would the public react?
Somber. I think there would be this big exhale for about a day. And then this turning inward and trying to reflect on what this means to us and our species and ourselves. I think...
Somber, like a sigh of relief?
Somber meaning serious. Not like Hollywood portrays people partying in the streets and silliness like that. I think you would have some people perhaps turning to religion more so. You might have some people turning away from religion. I think you're going to have, at that point, the philosophical and theological questions will be raised, and people will have some serious soul searching to do, no pun intended. And I don't think that's bad, by the way. I think a lot of folks that have spent their times in this community being charlatans will have been exposed, and they will be probably unemployed.
Okay, so let's back that up a little bit and break it down, because he's moving on to charlatans, but I want to stick with the somber comment. Let's go back just a little bit.
Serious soul searching to do, no pun intended.
Yeah.
And I don't think that...
Let's go back a couple. Oops.
It's bad, by the way. I think a lot of folks that have spent their times in this community being charlatans will have been exposed, and they're turning away from religion. I think you're going to have, at that point, the philosophical...
So some people turning to religion, some people turning away from it. What else does he say?
Theological questions will be raised.
Theological questions. So notice, first of all, that Lue is being asked, how's the public going to take the truth coming out? So we don't know exactly what truths Lue is thinking about, but I'm going to make some educated guesses. And the theological thing happens to be one of my specialties. So I know exactly what he's talking about, and I'm gonna tell you. But I wanted to make the point here that the very first thing he goes to is the religious thing. Okay, just let me pause this for a minute. Okay, I had to get a little pop-up window off of one of my screens. So the very first thing he goes to is the theological thing. And this is really what the somber thing is all about. So I think that I'll have another jumping in point coming up. And so let's go a little further, and then I'll jump into that religious thing. Okay.
And people will have some serious soul searching to do, no pun intended. And I don't think that's bad, by the way. I think a lot of folks that have spent their times in this community being charlatans will have been exposed, and they will be probably unemployed and probably have to change their names because, the rest of society will look at them in an unfavorable light.
As well.
I think there are some unsung heroes that will probably come to light, and the world will appreciate their contributions to this topic. I think the scientific community and academic communities, no, I can't give those names.
I know what I was going to say is names that have been announced before when you say the unsung heroes, or new names.
Yeah, names haven't been announced before.
Okay.
I think the scientific and academic community is going to have to take a real hard look at itself and see why it repeated the same mistakes it did when Galileo first proposed that the Earth was not the center of the solar system. Hubris is a big part of that. And then I think, maybe we start the international conversation, say, okay, we realize that there's some things out there that are probably well beyond our petty discrepancies we have with each.
Yeah, so he's covering three things so far he's mentioned. The theological kind of shakeup that's going to occur. And this is what I'm going to get into discussing. He's also mentioned that charlatans will have to change their name and sort of drop out. That's going to be one of my favorite parts. It's funny to think, isn't it, that E.T. is here and we might just get to meet him very soon. And yet the thing I'm looking forward to the most is just saying, I told you so, to people like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Michael Shermer and who the hell else. Yeah, throughout the years. Oh, there's been some good ones. Some of them are still practicing today. They're going to have a great fall pretty soon. But anyway, and so there was the theological, the charlatans, and then also the scientific community. That's another area because in their hubris, thinking that they had everything, especially the speed of light thing, right? They were very sure about that nothing can go faster than the speed of light. So if these things really were out there, it would take them millions of years to get here. And that just wouldn't be feasible. And I totally agree. It also wouldn't be feasible to try to build a pyramid using those size of blocks with just original technology, right? So anyway, that's just a side point. But the scientific community is going to have some real soul searching to do, and they're going to have to ask themselves why they repeated the same mistakes that we made with Galileo, putting him in prison for suggesting something that ended up being the truth. Well, the scientific community put all of us UFO guys in prison because they called us crazy, lunatics, uncritical thinkers, people who are easily fooled by things they see in the sky. And this kind of bullshit's been going on for 70 years now. It started with the weather balloon. So they're going to have a lot to answer for, because the fact is, if they would have been demanding to get from the government what they've got on UFOs, of course the government wouldn't have given it to them anyway. But if they had demanded, they would have at least shown some kind of redeeming characteristic here. But instead, they bought the government's propaganda line, hook, line, and sinker. They said to themselves, nobody can get here faster than the speed of light, therefore they're not here. And the government says it's all a bunch of hooey anyway, so we agree with the government. That's the scientific community is going to be really pissed at themselves, really red-faced when they realize what happened here. And then what else does he have to say? Well, I have a jumping in point here, even though I've jumped in twice already.
Each other. Maybe we really need to start working together on this. Realize that we are really a global family. Doesn't matter.
Okay, so then he's talking about what he wants to see in the international conversation is something about coming together. And that's, thank you, Lou, for saying that. There's a lot of talk about how this could very well unify us even before we get any kind of benefit or any kind of, from ETs or get any kind of any changes made. Just the very information itself that we're not alone may tend to have a very unifying effect. I'm kind of counting on it. But, there's other problems in getting to utopia from here. And a big part of those problems is the corrupt governments, the military-industrial complex, the corruption in government, and the 1% who control everything, including government and media. So those things need to be pushed over as well to reach utopia. But the first thing that should happen is just that we come together, get this feeling that we're all one family. And that feeling will increase once we get rid of those terrible things that have their boot on our neck. You know what I mean?
Where you're from, or it doesn't matter what your religion is, or culture, or your color, or anything else. We are all brothers and sisters on this tiny little rock called Earth.
Amen.
This pale blue dot that's hurtling through space.
We may unify us.
Yes.
Well, I would certainly hope so, unless we allow our poor nature to interfere, and we look at this as opportunities to subjugate each other. I would hope that's not the case.
This second clip gives context to the first and was asked in 2021.
The last time we spoke, there were two comments that you said that stood out to me. Well, one was the somber heard around the world, in a sense, and then you clarified that, or you added to that by saying sobering. Oh, I was wondering, we can get to that. And then also you mentioned that the charlatans of the world will be shown to be charlatans. And I, again, don't know much about this UFO community, but people in the comments were saying, did he mean Stephen Greer? So why don't you comment on that? You can be as diplomatic as you like. I know that you're a relatively diplomatic person.
Yeah, let me start with by somber or sobering.
Yeah, please.
Imagine everything you've been taught, whether it's through Sunday school or through regular formal education in school, or what our political leaders have told us. And yes, even maybe our mothers and fathers around the dinner table have told us, or maybe at bedtime, about who we are, right? And our background and our past. What if all of that turned out to be not entirely accurate? In fact, the very history of our species, the meaning, what it means to be a human being and our place in this universe. What if all that is now in question? What if it turns out that a lot of the things that we thought were one way aren't? Are we prepared to have that honest question with ourselves? Are we prepared to recognize that we're not at the top of the food chain, potentially? That we're not the alpha predator, that we are maybe somewhere in the middle? It's interesting because I was having a discussion with a friend not too long ago. We call them graybeards.
Okay. So let's go back and break this one down now.
Background in our past. imagine everything you've been taught, whether it's through Sunday school.
Okay. So remember earlier we were talking about the three areas that he had covered on this topic. The first one was theological, and the second one was scientific. Third one was about the international conversation that we should have about unity. So now when he covers this, the first thing that he touches on, he's being asked to explain what is so sombering and sobering about the truth. And the first thing he's touching on is what if what you were told in Sunday school wasn't exactly accurate? Okay, that's my jumping off point. And he touches on this subject again in a matter of seconds. But let's jump off there. I think what Lue has come across is the truth as I see it. I'm claiming this is the truth. It's just the theory, okay? But when you have a theory that resonates with everything that you've been researching for years and years and contemplating and just letting it kind of swirl around in your head, waiting for those rings of truth and those confirmations from unknown sources sometimes that just give you the feeling like this is the truth. So I think what truth Lue has in mind here is first, that ET themselves genetically engineered us. Now, they are the so-called missing link. And my subscribers know I talk about this all the time. But I think the most obvious proof of this is the extraordinary human pain in childbirth. Now, in our Bible, I shouldn't say our Bible, in the Bible, we have the story of Adam and Eve. And Eve is told that her punishment is pain in childbirth. And I'm like, what? What? Why did you think of that as a punishment? I would think more grounded for 2 weeks, something like that. But no, pain in childbirth, where is that coming from? And that never made any sense to me until I realized he knew very well that when she would have children, she would have pain because they genetically engineered Adam and Eve, or human beings, let's just say, to modern human beings. They genetically engineered them. They gave them larger brains, and that meant bigger heads. And the birth canal was not made any larger. Why? Well, because as Michio Kaku clued me in on, the birth canal cannot be made any larger in our current configuration because it would make upright walking impossible for the female. So the birth canal has to remain rather pretty much at the size that it's at. And the heads were made slightly larger with the brains. And so this is the source of our extraordinary pain that women have. And I think this is a great example of sort of, the Bible seems to be telling us, maybe it's just that we can finally see through it, right? But it's, why did the author of this story include that detail? I mean, it was obviously a lie. It wasn't a punishment. But why would they even bring it up? And I think it's because, first, they wanted human beings to know that their pain in childbirth was not natural, because they would assume this, why do we have pain? We look at the animals, they don't seem to have as much pain as we do, not anywhere near. So maybe it was deemed important to give them a reason, but they didn't give them the honest reason. Instead, they pretended it was a punishment. That's just despicable lying. But then again, whoever wrote this story must have known that at some point we would recognize the truth of this. And that's where we're at now. With 21st century eyes, we can see that that's exactly why we have pain in childbirth. They genetically engineered us. They're not God. They're not perfect. This was the best they could do, and they deemed it was good enough. So they went with it, and that's us. Now, so that conflicts with the notion that God created, the creator of the universe created us. Well, I mean, it's not that E.T. created us, right? But they did genetically engineer us. They're not creators. They're breeders, genetic breeders. That's the Elohim. And that word is a plural, but it's translated as God in the English Bible. That's so I'm saying the Elohim are not God. They are a race of ETs that genetically engineered us. Now, go back to the Sumerian literature, because there's another fact here that we think it is likely true, and that is that the Sumerian literature, oldest text in the world, talks about our creation as well. But in that story, they talk about that the reason that we were created from primates, the reason that they took the primate and enhanced it with a larger brain and all that, was because they wanted a race of beings that they could use as a labor force, a slave labor force, subservient labor force. And so, if you want to boil it down to a buzzword, we were originally a slave race. Not a good feeling. It's much less glorious than the idea that God created us as, the apple of his eye, the gem of the universe, the only creation in the universe, the pinnacle of God's creation. But no, it turns out we were a slave race. And also, Papa was a Rolling Stone, because it would appear that we were they almost decided to destroy us in the flood, but then, Noah was preserved, and the story. I don't want to get too much into side points, but Noah was a genetically improved version of Adam. So apparently when they made the choice to preserve us, they decided that they wanted to start over with a new set of genes, slightly different. And that's where we're at now. So I can see why this would be very sombering, right? Now, what implication will this have on religion? Well, I think we're probably going to be okay in terms of the Christian religion, but there's going to have to be an acknowledgement that Yahweh was not the creator, even though he claimed to be. And in fact, my research shows that he was someone who showed absolutely no love for human beings, and that he actually presided over some, blue on blue killings, people killing at Mount Sinai over the golden calf thing. He demanded that Moses demanded that they declare their loyalty either to Yahweh or not to Yahweh. And half of them said no, they've had it with him. And so Yahweh declared that or Moses, I think again, but Yahweh oversaw this whole thing, didn't stop Moses. And Moses said that every man should take up his sword and go kill his own brother if he's not standing with Yahweh. So that's just one example. I mean, he was a tyrant. So he was not God the creator. Thank God for that. But how's that going to feel for a Jewish person that their Torah is describing, well, they loved Moses, and Moses was, and they loved Abraham, and Abraham was worthy of their love, but Yahweh was not. So I'm not sure how the Jewish people are going to, I don't know if they'll ever admit that Yahweh was an ET. Hopefully that truth will come out eventually. And then when it comes to the Christian religion, nothing really changes. I mean, Jesus was who he was. Was he half ET? Probably. Were those ETs that created us, are they still around today? We have no idea. Nobody's claiming to be that. But I would see no reason why they wouldn't be. In fact, I would think that they would be the ones that would have the most interest in us. But they're nowhere to be found. But let's not confuse the Greys with our creators, because the Greys are not our creators, at least as far as I know. I mean, they are genetic wizards, so you never know. But I mean, the actual beings who lived with us, like the fallen angels and all the other, let's stick with the Hebrews. So the fallen angels, they were human looking. And it says in the Bible that the Elohim we were made to look like them. Let us make man in our image and likeness. So it's really interesting that we have this group of ETs that supposedly looks like us. How did that happen? Of course, the theological explanation is, they didn't mean physically. They meant, spiritually we're made in the image of God. Now, sorry, words are words, and the simplest meaning of the word is what's meant here. We were made in their image and likeness, and they do look like us, and the Bible confirms this. So let's see what else Lue has to say before we wrap this up.
Or through regular formal education in school, or
right. So he says, what if everything you've been taught in Sunday school, and we just went through that long rabbit hole there. So that's one thing. And then now when he gets into high school and all now he's talking about science and how that's wrong.
What our political leaders have told us, and yes, even maybe our mothers and fathers around the dinner table have told us, or maybe at bedtime, about who we are, mm-hmm. right? And our background and our past.
A slave race. Right? I mean, we can handle it. We're not slaves anymore. Well, actually, we have been, but it's a different sort of slave, right? And we're about to be free from that too. So I think humanity has had a checkered past and a dubious beginning, but apparently we're the greatest show in the galaxy right now. Everybody's here to watch us graduate, emerge into the galactic community. That's what I think. So, yeah.
What if all of that turned out to be not entirely accurate? In fact, the very history of our species, the meaning, what it means to be a human being and our place in this universe.
Okay, I think we've covered all this. So those are the things that are going to change, folks. it's not about, and then when he talks about the food chain not being at the top of the food chain, I don't think he's implying that. He's not talking about eating, okay? He's talking about predatory and strength. Like right now, we are the alpha predator on the planet, or at least we thought we were. But now there's a potentially much more advanced race, and they are, in fact, the alpha predator, if you want to stick with those words. And as to whether there are actual aliens that eat humans, I have no idea. But I don't think that's something that Lue worries much about. I think he's really talking about where we stand. Are we king of the hill or not? No, we're not. But that's okay, because in my opinion, these beings that first of all, I think the Greys are trying to fix their own problem, and they're using our genetic material for this. But I also think that if the universe is a just universe, and these are very advanced beings, I think they probably have a sense of fair play. And so if what they've been doing to us has in fact been, and it has been, a source of a lot of there's been some people that have not enjoyed their experiences at all. And I don't like this idea of being taken without your consent. Now, granted, most of the experiences that I've heard about have been ones that they actually wish that they would continue, because they've gotten so much mental expansion out of it. Their whole worldview has expanded greatly, and that's an exciting thing. And now they kind of feel like they're on this wave of wherever we're going, and they have some inside information, and that's great. But even they don't know what the hell is exactly going on. So, but let's not confuse what the Greys are doing with the other part, which is that we are a created race. We were a hybrid race, and that there are other races out there. So we need to know more about what the Greys are doing, but I'm thinking that what they're doing is going to be paid back to us in ways that we may not even be able to imagine right now. That's what I'm hoping for. That's my theory. In a just universe, they would in fact do that. The secrecy is serving them and us right now, because it is they're trying to be as undisruptive as possible while accomplishing their goals. But we need to know what those goals are now. I'm at a point where I'm out of patience with the secrecy on anybody's part. Jesus' part, the Greys' part, and anybody else who's in a position to give us the truth and isn't giving it to us up there. It's about fucking time we get it. Don't you agree? All right. Well, with that, where's the right music? That wasn't it. Yeah, that was it. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly got a kick out of it. This has been Larry Garrett. If this is your first time meeting me, I just have to say that it's an honor that you even listened. And I'd like you to hear these words from the great Jennifer Stone. Until next time, go easy. And if you can't go easy, go as easy as you can.